Yes, people, welcome back to Albert JTV. It's been a while, people, of life stories. Hashtag episode 18 with Sky Sports Royalty. But before we get into it, people, let's hit the intro. Yes, people, welcome back to Albert JTV for an exclusive episode of Life Stories. Hashtag episode 18. I'll be joined by the brilliant Tom White from Sky Sports News. What a show we have in store. Presenting expertise meets Albert JTV. Welcome back to Life Stories. Yes, people, and welcome back once again. Good morning, and as they say, happy Thursday. The obligatories, people, smash the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to Albert JTV. As I'd like to say, people, welcome to the South East London red carpet. And audio listeners, you will not be forgotten because it will be downloaded on my Spotify and Anchor, so you can not only hear my dulcet tones, but also my fantastic guests' dulcet tones as well. So, people, we're going to get into life stories. It's been a while. Episode 18. I'm pleased to announce I've got an amazing guest with me. I have Tom White Media from Sky Sports. Tom, it's a pleasure to have you on, and welcome to Albert JTV.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me, and thank you for the intro. Very good. I love that.
I thought, you know what, if I'm bringing on, if Tom White's agreed to come on my channel, believe me, I'm going to put out a banging intro, man. So I tried. So I appreciate it, my friend, man, honestly. But yeah, Tom, like I said, we had a little chat before we came on live, and I said, sometimes in life, you just got to just send a message and see how it goes. Articulate it. I had that thing, Tom, where I was like, should I send it? Let me proofread it again. Should I send it? Now, let me wait a bit. Let me send it again. And I sent it, and Tom gratefully read it and got back to me the following day. But I know Tom's a busy man and I haven't got long with him. So we're going to fire through people. But let me go to the chat quickly, Tom. Some people that want to say hi, probably, I assume. So Scott Ball, my Australian brother, Gooner. How are you doing, my friend? G Talks is in there. They've all come out, Tom. All the YouTube contingents come out to say hi and hello. And the Tottenham fan in there as well, believe it or not. Jay, are you sure you're on the right stream? But no, much love, Tom. So yeah, life stories is kind of a episode 18. Buzzing to get you on. Buzzing. So a little bit. It's to do with football, but as you know, I'm an Arsenal fan. But it's sometimes I always say to people to get away from the blood and thunder of football and the social media world. This is what life stories is, kind of like a therapy session, kind of, Tom. But also to pick your brains as well. So let's dive right into it. Tom, as I know, you are a massive Sunderland fan. So as I like to do with all my guests on life stories, your Sunderland story, my friend. Why Sunderland? Earliest memories and influence supporting your club. Hashtag the Black Cats.
Well, in terms of why Sunderland, it's very easy. I'm in the Northeast. You are either your Sunderland or your Newcastle. All right. You very rarely see any Manchester United shirts, Liverpool shirts. I mean, I've not lived there for a while, but still, when you go back there, it's, you're either red and white or you're black and white. That's how it is 100%. In the Northeast. And so it's very easy. If your parents support the same club, which mine do, they're both Sunderland fans, both big Sunderland fans, both go to games, always have done. You don't get a choice. You don't get to kind of say, oh, which team do you like? It's no, your name is Tom. I've given you that name. You support Sunderland, and that's it. They're the two things you don't have any choice of when you're born in the Northeast. All right. Yeah. If your two parents support the same club, the problem is, if one supports Sunderland, one supports Newcastle, then you've got a choice to make. Yeah. Now, thankfully for me, they both support Sunderland. But if it was one and the other, as I was growing up, like obviously Sunderland fan couldn't change that, but Newcastle started flying. Newcastle got Kevin Keegan as manager. They flew up from near the bottom of what is now the Championship up to almost winning the Premier League. The Entertainers, who everybody remembers, and if you're too young to remember the Entertainers, you've heard of the Entertainers under Kevin Keegan. And we were battling relegation in the second tier all that time. So my childhood as a Sunderland fan was actually quite tough, but I would never ever change it. And my son, he's a Sunderland. He's 5. He doesn't have a choice. He is a Sunderland fan because I've told him he's a Sunderland fan. I'm not with his mum anymore, but his mum doesn't like football. So again, that's easy. Even though we live down in the south now, he's a Sunderland fan and he knows it.
No, Tom, you know what? It's funny because obviously, I always like to say my favourite saying. Thanks for your amazing stuff about Sunderland, but I'm 21 plus a little bit of VAT. So on a negative, I remember the sort of my memories of Sunderland are going back to the early 90s. FA Cup final. I think John Byrne was up front, and then he scored in every round apart from the final.
He missed a sitter in the final. He missed a sitter in the final at 0-0. At 0-0.
Crucial. Yeah. Kevin Ball, Peter Davenport, the old Roker Park.
Yes.
The playoff final. Tom, sorry to give you the bad stuff at first. Against Charlton, Niall Quinn, Kevin Phillips, Nicky Summerby, and finish on a good note, Tom, about Sunderland. Respect to Kevin Phillips, because to hit that season in 1999, 2000, I believe it was, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, to hit 30 Premier League goals. I don't think you'll see an English striker do that anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we do for England's sake. But it was actually quite amazing because he scored bucket loads of goals in the Championship.
Yeah.
And everybody, and even to this day, people say you can't make the step up from the Championship to the Premier League. He did, and he actually even better, because if you look, I think his goals to game ratio in the Premier League in those first couple of seasons were better than his goals to game ratio in the Championship. Because obviously there's more games, the more goals in the Championship, there's more games. And he was absolutely brilliant. And he's become. It's quite strange in my job is that this is someone who was my hero. I had his name on the back of a shirt. Actually, funny enough, that gold kit that we played in the playoff final against Charlton, I had his name on the back of that shirt with number 10 on the back. And over the years of doing this job, he's become a friend of mine. Last Sunday was Sunday before last was my UK stag do, and he came on it. So he kind of, it's quite surreal in that sense to think of that was a real hero of mine. Who has ended up becoming a real friend. But you're right. What he did was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I hope it happens again. But that was amazing.
Yeah, no, it's important. No, well said, Tom. It's important to bring that up because I remember the season very well. I think he came 7th that season. But I thought, you know what? As good as we talk about English strikers in the last 5 to 10 years, that feat should never be forgotten. It wasn't just 30 goals in the season. It's 30 league goals in the season. Not many strikers even now in world football can pull that kind of feat, irrespective of whatever you think of their domestic leagues, Tom. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think even now at the start of the season, I was hearing people predict how many Haaland would score, right? Now, Haaland's an absolute goal machine, and very few people were even saying 30. Now, I've got this. I've said this on air at the start of the season. I think that Haaland will get 40 Premier League goals as long as there's no injuries or no big injuries. I think Haaland will get 40, and he is probably considered to be already probably the best striker in the world. Maybe, I know you can always argue other people as well, but if people are saying we're struggling to predict 30 for him, think of what Kevin Phillips did, and we finished 7th and then 7th the season after as well. As a newly promoted club, there was no second season syndrome as well. But they were good times. They were very good times. Sadly, it's been a long time.
It's the right time. Tom, you took the words out of my mouth. I wasn't going to say anything, but you've kind of touched it a little bit. But that's fine. No, it's important to get sort of your kind of your passions and your kind of your upbringing in terms of Sunderland. So no, it's good. Always good to hear fans with stories. But people, let's move on to the next one. So Tom. Football heroes. Name me one footballing hero from the past that you admired the most and why. #memories.
Yeah, well, Sunderland. I'll give you Sunderland and I'll give you England as well. Sunderland was Kevin Ball, who you mentioned, who was a former captain of ours. Now, a lot of people might not know very much about him, but the reason I love him so much is because one, he's actually from the South Coast. All right, he might actually, you know what? He might be from London, then move to Portsmouth. I don't know, right? But he's from the South, and but he bleeds red and white. He joined Sunderland, became captain, a real leader, loved the whole area, loved the fans, and although he did have a brief spell at Fulham, he then came back as a coach and stayed. Most of his working life was at Sunderland, and he really, really loved the club and put everything into the club, and that was off the pitch. On the pitch, he was hard as nails. Hard as nails. But I've heard him say that he couldn't survive in the game these days because he was hard. Now, The players who are fast, great. Skillful, great. Great finishers, fine, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, even myself, as nowhere near ever good enough to even play semi-pro, let alone professional, I was quite fast. You know, I could finish a little bit. I could pass. There's a little bit of skill in there. But what I couldn't do was be a hard man, right? Going in for a 50-50 tackle,
Yeah.
I would just jump over it and pretend I'd gone for it. You know, going up to challenge for a header, I'll just, you know, turtleneck. Oh, well, at least I tried. I didn't try at all. So it's the hard men that really impressed me. So Kevin Ball, really loved him. And like in more recent time, Lee Cattermole for exactly the same reason. You know, another one who wore the armband for Sunderland a lot as well. And then for that reason, you go to England and like Terry Butcher was just a warrior. I mean, him and Kevin Ball were warriors. So that kind of thing. So that's the kind of Sunderland thing. Terry Butcher was player manager for Sunderland with very little stroke zero success at all. But so I'm talking of him from an England point of view, not a Sunderland point of view. But my first heroes actually were because I got into football in the 1990 World Cup.
Okay, of course.
Loads of fans get into it during the World Cup. So 1990 World Cup, Sir Bobby Robson was manager, and I didn't know all of the problems before. Everybody had turned on Sir Bobby Robson, but I didn't know that because I got into it in the World Cup when we got the semi-finals, and he was such a gentleman. I loved that.
Yeah.
And on the pitch, Paul Gascoigne was
class.
Paul Gascoigne was just setting the whole world alight, and he was a character. And the thing is, at this stage, even though I knew I was a Sunderland fan because I'd been told I was a Sunderland fan, I didn't realise that Sir Bobby Robson and Paul Gascoigne were absolutely diehard Newcastle fans. So my first two footballing heroes were actually Newcastle fans, and I feel very privileged to have met them both in my life as well. Really privileged, especially with Sir Bobby Robson. When I say that he's a gentleman, like I times it by 10. You know, they say never meet your heroes. Not him. Absolutely not him whatsoever. And I remember saying to him how, because I've also became friends with a former Arsenal striker, Niall Quinn, a real legend of our club, because he pretty much saved our club. Back in 2006, we were in real trouble, and he put a consortium together. Yeah, he put a consortium together himself as someone who only just retired from playing. Another one, just absolute gentleman. I remember saying to Sir Bobby Robson, why is it that, like, when I think of Niall Quinn, he seems to actually he's loved by Sunderland fans. He's not loved by Newcastle fans, but they respect him. You are loved by both Newcastle and Sunderland fans, even though you at the time you are Newcastle manager and you are Newcastle through and through. Why do you think you're loved by both? And he was really taken aback by it. Yeah. But the answer is, he couldn't give this answer obviously, but I can. He is an absolute gentleman, and he is a great not advert. A great example for Northeast people. When people think of him, they think the Northeast, and that's a good thing.
No, Tom, great stuff. I mean, like I said, my first obviously tournament would have been, it's a bit too young for Euro 88, but I remember 1990 very, very well. And as much as Gaz obviously represented a certain part of North London that I won't mention their name. I know Jay's in the chat. But Paul Gascoigne, trust me, a different class. For me, Tom, I've spoken about this on Live Stories on many episodes. You know, as a young black kid growing up in Southeast London and seeing people that look like you, represent you, Ian Wright is huge for that, for me. And obviously being a Southeast Londoner as well. So a massive, massive sort of hero for me. And people like John Barnes as well for Liverpool. Amazing winger. And it's a shame with Barnsley, Tom, in the sense of his England career. We tried to sort of fit him into the old-fashioned 4-4-2, and it just, for him, when he played for England, it was just it was a completely different player from what I saw when he played for Liverpool, which was a shame.
Well, and we've had that problem with several players. We've had that problem with Glenn Hoddle. He doesn't fit into the system. I'll change the system. Matt Letizia he got very, very few caps, and he was a footballing genius. And it's very much as though in that old school 4-4-2 formation, you've kind of got to have 2 all-action midfielders, 2 out-and-out strikers, 2 proper wingers.
Yeah.
Well, where does Barnes, Letitia, and Hoddle fit into that system? Well, change the system. Change the system.
Tom, you know what? Tom, it's mad because you raised a good point in the sense of, I remember Glenn Hoddle saying this when he had the England manager's job, that when he talked about sort of systems and formations, that he spent most of his years running around playing for England without having possession of the football. And it's ironic, when he managed England, I know the relationship between him and Matt Letitia wasn't fantastic, and he just never put him in the team. So it's weird, Tom, isn't it? Like, two talented players like that, one end up becoming England manager, but never picking a player as talented as not arguably like him or similar to his sort of role. Would you say to that?
Well, exactly. And I remember, I don't know if you're a fan of a podcast called Under the Cosh. It's run by
I've heard
Chris Brown, John Park, and another Chris Brown, but I think he's not a former player. One of the Chris Browns isn't a former player. It's a really good podcast, by the way. Very light-hearted, great, great stories with ex-players and stuff. And they had Matt Letitia on, and he actually talked about exactly what you've said there. He thought, right, well, Glenn Hoddle is my hero. He's now the England manager, and maybe he's going to be able to fit me in. Just like when Alan Ball was manager at Southampton, he just said to Matt Letitia, right, we've got an out-and-out striker. You just play off him. Do your own thing. So it's basically a 4-4-1.
Yeah.
And you're the person who can go wherever you like. And that season, he got those 2 seasons, maybe he got his best goal returns ever. So even though he wasn't playing as an out-and-out striker, he was still scoring a boatload of goals. And he thought that Hoddle would be able to incorporate him, but it didn't work. And then Hoddle took over at Southampton and it didn't work either.
Yeah, no, well said. It's true. Yes, yeah, it's mad. But good shout, Matt Letitia. Unbelievable penalty taker as well.
Only missed one. Yeah, Mark Crossley, the save.
So you remember it very, very well, Tom. Well done.
Mark Crossley, yeah.
So we're rattling through. So Tom, bit of a gear change this one. I did sort of one thing with me with my channel, Tom, with certain things I may ask. Yes, it's a football channel and I love Arsenal, but some of the topics I've covered on my channel, for example, have not been all about football. I have a little platform and I like to express my views and feelings. And if people listen, it's fantastic. But a bit of a gear change, people, with life stories. But Tom, as someone as yourself, working in the position that you're doing, the job that you do, I sort of then bring up on screen for people. So obviously, not being outside of the BAME community as you are, Black Lives Matter. What I mean by that is, sort of, what was we go back to, obviously, the last few years have been a rough time for a lot of people for various different reasons, maybe redundancy from jobs or COVID or losing loved ones. But, we take it back to sort of May 25th, 2020, of what happened with George Floyd in Minnesota. And subsequently, a lot of media coverage, and you had the Black Lives Matter movement in this country, lots of, not protests, what's the word I'm looking for, lots of marches and highlighting inequality and underbelly racism, as I like to say. So for you, Tom, sort of what was your sort of thoughts and feelings and emotions? What did that BLM evoke in you, both in a personal and professional capacity? # speak your truth.
Yeah, I think the best way for me to describe this is to go through my kind of history in life. All right. So being from where I'm from, very much predominantly white, much predominantly. I then lived in Edinburgh for 5 years, predominantly white. There were, in both of those areas, a lot of South Asians, but very few Black people. And then everything changed for me because I had a year where I lived in South Africa. I worked in a school in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. So the school I worked in, it was all boys, by the way. It was an all boys school because out in South Africa, I don't know if it's changed now. Every school you had to pay for, right? There was no schools, the government didn't pay for anything. All schools, you had to pay for them, right? And there were only certain jobs for Black people, which just, it baffled me completely. All right. So petrol pump attendant, cleaners, they were Black. but none of the teachers in the school were black. And any pupils in the school that were black were on bursaries, where the school had gone into townships in South Africa and picked out the ones who they thought might be good sports players. In this case, sportsmen, because it was a boys' school. And they were kind of brought into the school to get an education because they might be good for the school in the future, because they might play for South Africa at cricket or rugby or something like that. And that was a real shock to my system, right? I didn't understand. They didn't have a football team in the school that I joined, so I started a football team. And we couldn't get any opponents because none of the schools around us played soccer, as they called it. None of them played soccer. So we would have to play the townships. But we were told very clearly by the teachers and the parents, the townships, their team has to come to us. We can't go into that township because it's not safe.
Wow.
And this is more story about kind of poverty and politics than black and white, I think. But linked.
Yeah, of course.
I was still thinking, honestly, I was quite defiant. I was like, nonsense, absolute nonsense. Right, parent, you come as well, then we'll be fine. And it was like, no, Tom, these games can't happen. So the townships would come to us, and actually it was amazing. I was quite proud of the fact that we'd managed to start a football team and that we managed to get in opposition, and the opponents were coming from, like, when I say not a privileged background, I mean, it was what us living over here, we can't even imagine, right? And it blew my mind that people lived like that. Okay, so that was in my own like kind of life. That was a real big thing for me living out there because I couldn't get my head around it. Okay,
yeah.
And then when I came back, I went to university in Luton. So I lived in Luton for 3 years, and Luton was the second place in England to be over 50% not white.
Yeah.
All right. So having come from somewhere in the northeast where I'm from, where it was, I don't know any percentages. I don't really care about percentages, but it was mainly white. Edinburgh, mainly white. Come to Luton, and there was more black or South Asians than white people, and that was it was. One of my best friends, he's best man at my wedding. He's my son's godfather, who I'll get to in a minute on the Black Lives Matter. He always remembers how when I started university, he always remembers that I was just constantly asking him questions.
Yeah.
Like, because it was different. Everything was different to me. And the football team that I got into at university, it started with a squad of 21 players, but only 2 of us were white. And he remembers me asking so many questions because I didn't know much about London, and that's where he was from. That's where most of the players in the team were from. And he would tell me about how there would be kind of banter, you'd say, between the players whose heritage was from Africa and those who were from, like for instance, my friends from Jamaica.
Yeah. There's a lot of banter. Yeah, there's a lot.
There was a lot of banter there. And then the people, the players whose heritage was Ghana would have banter with the ones whose heritage was Nigeria.
Oh, don't get me started.
And to me, I like sat back and kind of watched, but quite enjoyed sort of just broadening my knowledge on life, and I had so many questions, and he always remembers me asking these questions, which is where we get on to the Black Lives Matter with George Floyd. Can you remember everyone posting a black square?
Yes.
On Instagram or on social media? I remember on the day, I think it was a Tuesday. Anyway, that's only relevant in a minute. So let's say it was a Tuesday and everyone posted a black square. I didn't do it and I was getting annoyed with people who, in my opinion, friends of mine who were white, who were subconsciously racist. I felt that they were subconsciously racist in my mind, right? And I knew that I wasn't, right? And I was like, I can't believe they're posting that. They're just doing that to look good. I think that they're actually they're the kind of people who a player would sign for their club who's black. they'll have never seen them play, but they'll say, "Oh yeah, well, we do actually need someone with pace," and just assume that that player is fast because he's black, right?
Yeah, well said.
That kind of person that I'm talking about, which is completely wrong. That kind of person that I'm talking about, I was seeing them post the black square, and I was like, "No, I'm not doing it. No, not having it." So when I'm telling you about my my friend, his name's Carl, Arsenal fan actually.
Yes, go on, Carl.
Yeah, and he's still he's going to be best man at my wedding. Like I say, my son's godfather. I was talking to him later that week. So let's say it was a Tuesday. I think I was talking to him. I'm pretty sure I've got these days right of the week. I think it was the Saturday. I was talking to him about something else, and he was being a bit off. And he said to me, "Why didn't you post the black square?" And I explained to you there, just like I've explained to you. I said, well, that's why. That's why, because I don't need to tell the world that I'm not racist. I'm just not racist.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, but by posting the black square, you are showing everybody that you've got my back, And he reeled off a load of black mutual friends that we've got, and he actually, one of them was Clinton Morrison, in fact, and we're both friends with. He said, I bet Clinton would appreciate it if you'd posted the black square. And I thought, God, he's right. I'm in the wrong here, actually. Like up on my high horse, saying I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they're doing that. I don't need to do that. I was in the wrong, And I kind of, I guess it was kind of a lesson to me that, every day of your life you can learn new things. But on the subject of racism, which all stemmed from George Floyd, I actually had a lot to learn. It is, and I've said this to other people since, it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. And that is absolutely right. It's not enough for me to just put my hands up and say, well, I'm not racist. Everyone will tell you I'm not racist. It doesn't matter. You have to be anti-racist, and you have to. And it was important to me then. I realized 4 or 5 days late, because I did eventually post the black square with an explanation, but loads of days late, it dawned on me that I was completely in the wrong, and I felt a little bit stupid about it, actually. And I actually had a lot to learn on that subject. And I guess you learn by asking questions. You educate yourself. When I've done someone was having this as a specialist subject at their university, kind of last year of their university, and they interviewed me about it, and I've said all of what I've just said there. And everyone knows that when it comes to racism, most things, education is the key. But you can't actually educate yourself.
Yeah,
you can't ask questions to your friends that, if you have friends that are, like in your case white, in my case black, you can't. No one's going to be offended if you get asked a question. You know what I mean? No one's going to. If I say, do you know what? Am I all right to say this? I remember saying it to you. I don't know if you know another Arsenal fan, JD Dyer. Do you know him? He works with me.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been on the panel with me on Transfer Talk for a few years. He now does Soccer Saturday as a reporter, and he hosts the basketball.
Yes.
I remember saying to him, and I think Jess Crichton as well. Do you know Jess Crichton?
Yeah, no, Jess as well. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, well, two magnificent people. Love them both. I remember going on air, and we're about to go on air. I remember saying, like, I'm not sure about this link that I've written. Could that actually be deemed as racist, what I'm asking? And I can't remember what it was now. And they both said, no, of course not. I went, okay, sorry, sorry to ask. They said, no. And they both said, no, always ask. Always ask. If you're not sure about something, just ask us. It's not offensive to ask. And that's, so something that I learned very much because of Black Lives Matter. Because of George Floyd, the aftermath of George Floyd.
Yeah, Tom, fantastic. I mean, like I said, I've got a very small platform, but as much as I love football, someone put it in the chat. I'm very comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. So the Black Lives Matter for me, it was very thought provoking. It was emotional. It was also draining. And And I guess for me, it took me back to my childhood in the sense that most Black people, whether it be in London or the BAME community outside of London, 2 words, Tom, Stephen Lawrence. I remember it like I was yesterday. I was only 12, 13 at the time. And I always tell you this story. I do get emotional talking about it. When I was with an ex-partner at the time, we went out for one of her mates' birthdays in the O2 in Greenwich. And we drove back to where she lived at the time in Maidstone. And I've never, as much as I'm South East London born and bred, Tom, I've never been to that part of South East London in Elton where he was killed in 1993. And that was the first time I've ever come past it. And the emotion that came through me is something I've never experienced in my life before. It was incredible. I mean, because I think to myself, if I was a bit older at the time and I happened to live around that area, I might not be sitting here with you today having this podcast. And that's the reality that sunk into me. And I remember my partner asking me at the time, he said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "You know what, I'm not." Because I think it hits a raw nerve. And I've had situations in terms of relationships and football, and in terms of dealing with racism. And I had some unbelievable conversations with some of my ex-work colleagues who I used to work with at the MS Society charity where I used to work, like white male, female colleagues. And there are some very, very eye-opening conversations. You know, I'm old enough to remember Rodney King in took one of the worst police beatings I think I've ever seen in my life. Armored Arbery in America, Breonna Taylor, which that blows my mind. What happens to that young lady? So it's right, Tom. It's about educating yourself as well as having conversations and asking questions. And like I said, sometimes in life, not just to do with racism, but other subjects as well. It's about being able to be open and to have the uncomfortable conversations. Because you know what, I'm a reasonable guy and I like to have conversations. So you can ask me anything. So Tom, you answered that fantastically, man.
Let me just get a book that I read up on an audio book, but it's available and all, which I found fascinating. Let me just find it. I want to get the title exactly right. Okay,
go on, mate. No worries.
Because it's very interesting. Because a lot of people, by the way, say to me, "Oh yeah, in your industry, it must be these days. It must be quite hard to be a white male." And my response is always the same. It's, well, we've had it fairly good for a fairly long time.
Well said.
And any changes that are going on are for the good. All right. So just wind your neck in is what I say. Here it is. It is called Inner City Pressure by Dan Hancock's.
Right.
Now, the reason I said, this always surprises people when they hear this, is that I'm a massive grime fan, because when I moved to Luton, it was one of the centres of garage.
Yeah.
Yes. And when I said about how hard footballers, I can't relate to them. That's why I love them so much. I can never imagine how, to me, MCs, I'm like, you are geniuses. MCs are geniuses. So I was obsessed with the garage MCs. And when people say garage died, it didn't actually. Garage kind of evolved 3 ways. Some of the DJs went to funky house. Some of the MCs went to UK hip hop. And some of them went to this new sound that didn't even have a name, which, a lot of people would call it Esky Beat at the time because of Wiley.
Okay. Yeah.
And it became grime. So I'm a huge grime fan. And the book is actually entitled Inner City Pressure, the Story of Grime.
Yeah.
And that's what made me listen to it, because I thought it was a story about grime, but actually it's how grime fits in with what it's like in kind of the like inner cities and how it all started. And it's a lot about the kind of how a lot of the MCs, black MCs growing up in that environment, how tough life was and how grime is about, it's about gritty. Like garage was about champagne and girls. Grime is about real life struggles. And that book, by the way, I would really, really recommend it. I've got it on audio book because I'm in the car a lot, so I can listen to it in the car, but really, really good book.
Yeah, Tom, fantastic shout. And particularly talking about this, like, it kind of hit me really sort of a few hours earlier this morning. I thought, you know what, I definitely want to pick Tom's brains about this, because I know he'll speak about it in a fantastic way, and you have, mate. And for people that are not watching this live, you can always watch it back on the rerun, which I will definitely share on all my social media platforms. But if we back, guys, people listening, we'll take a little break after this intro, but we'll be back with some more questions with Tom. So, people, if you don't know what to do by now, this is what you should do. And there you have it, people. Subscribe away. Anybody listening on the audio, I always like to make this point. You're probably wondering, what's that dodgy music? It's not dodgy music. We're not in a massage parlor. It's a little intro to subscribe to the channel. So before we start getting a bit worried, but nah, Tom, fantastic, man. Thank you, Tom. So again, another gear change for Life Stories, people. And Tom, people will be fascinated to get your thoughts on this. Let me see if I can find it. What have I done with it? There it is. Presenting career, Tom. So what's Football Straight Sports presenting something that you always wanted to do from the outset? And how did you get into the industry? Hashtag people, drive, and passion.
Well, yeah, drive and passion, exactly that. Complete hard work. How I got into it was just pure hard work, right? But in terms of whether I've always wanted to do it, yes, I actually always wanted to be a commentator. When I said the 1990 World Cup, I watched England v Republic of Ireland, which is the first game I watched. I watched it with my dad, and I was saying to my dad, who was that man talking? And it was, of course, it was the commentator. And even at that age, I was 6, about to turn 7. And even then, I think I knew I was never good enough to be on the pitch. But the guy talking, I was like, all right, okay, well, I could maybe do that. And that's all I wanted to do. So at the age of 6, that's all I wanted to do. And once I got into Sky, which I'll get to, once I got into Sky, I actually realized commentating something I could probably do later in my career. But actually, I want to be a presenter or a reporter first. And that's the way I went. That's the way I went about it. But getting into Sky was a case of I applied for work experience, which was fairly easy to get work experience at Sky at some point. You know, there's a lot of applicants, but I think, you know, as long as, I think you just got to do I think these days, you as long as you've got your NCTJ, which is the journalism degree, I think you can get work experience quite easily.
Right. Okay.
I think that's what you need. I think I got in there 2 weeks work experience and just stayed on as a runner. So making the teas and coffees, looking after the guests, doing the auto cue for the presenters, making sure the food orders were right for the whole production team. And you think, when you're there, you think, it's easy to think, well, I've got a degree. What on earth am I doing this for?
Yeah. 100%.
But I was at the very bottom of a ladder, but it's the ladder I wanted to be on. I knew that if I kept climbing, I'd get to where I wanted to be. Now, if I was at the bottom of a ladder and I wanted to be on a different ladder, you've got to move immediately. Don't go halfway up a ladder, because you might, once you get to where you want to be, once you decide where you want to be, you might have to go down to the bottom of another ladder. All right. Yeah. So I was at the bottom, but I knew that I could work my way up.
Yeah.
And got my way into from that was Sky Sports, getting into Sky Sports News, which is where I wanted to be, because I wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
Getting in there and actually writing scripts for the presenters, typing the breaking news up at the bottom of your screen, the side panels with all the league tables and all the fixtures, doing all of that. And from there, the beauty is, and this is where the hard work comes in, because from there, by the way, very quickly went to reporter to presenter, and that's where I am now. And that process from runner to presenter took 7 years, which actually is quite quick. It's at the time it was quite quick. You might be able to do it quicker these days because you miss out the runner part of it. But 7 years it took me, and the reason I got there was from being a team player, putting my all in, and I knew if I did that, I would get a chance. And that's what I say to everybody in any walk of life. I say to them, if you work hard enough, you will get a chance. And that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah.
You can't even ask for a second chance, to be honest with you. All you can ask for in your career is a chance. And if you work hard enough, you will get it. It's up to you to take it there. If you don't take it, you've got to kind of just accept it. You know, I would still say keep trying personally, all right? But if you work hard enough, somebody will give you a chance. You've just got to take it, all right? But if you work hard enough, you will get it. And that's my whole career has been all about that. working hard to get that chance, which thankfully I took. I've just got to keep going. You know, the hard work doesn't stop once you've taken your chance. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going every single day. But that's the message I always give. You will get your chance. Hard work and patience.
No, Tom, brilliant, fantastic. Just a few sub questions to that, really, in terms of like, if you can narrow it down, because you've probably spoken to so many sports people, you're probably coming out of your ears. But so, what's your favorite person and sort of starstruck moments you've had?
Well, it was. Let me go into more on the Sir Bobby Robson one then, because that is a really, really good story as far as I'm concerned. So, I was at the time I was working at Sky, but I was only a runner, so I was trying to put together a show reel, and I knew that a friend of mine's grandma was cousins with Sir Bobby Robson, who was at the time Newcastle manager, but of course, I mean, that was his last job in football, you know, former England manager, former Barcelona manager. It was amazing. And I thought, right, do you know what? No harm. I'll just ask. I'll see if they can put me in touch with Sir Bobby Robson.
Yeah.
Anyway, she gets back to me, my friend's grandma, got back to my dad actually and said, yeah, no problem. Tell Tom he's got to be in this library in the centre of Newcastle at this time on this date. And Bobby will, but they call him Bob actually. Bob will speak to him. It's like, oh my God. So like, my sister comes down with a camera because she actually, she used to work on it because she used to work in television, doing various jobs in television years and years ago. Like she used to work on Biker Grove. Don't know if you remember Biker Grove.
Of course I do, Tom. Yes.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, she used to work on Biker Grove, and she worked on various productions in the Northeast in the past. I think she might have worked on Emmerdale for a little while as well, actually. No. Anyway, so she, you know, she knew what to do, knew how to hold a camera and stuff and get the sound right. So she comes down with me and we're waiting in this library. And so Bobby Robson walks in with his wife, Lady Elsie. What a lady, right? And you're going to find out why I love her so much in a minute. So Bobby Robson walks in and he sees me, he sees a camera and turns around at Elsie and goes, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh no." And Elsie, right? Turns out no one had asked Sir Bobby Robson. They'd asked Elsie, and Elsie just said, "Yeah, he'll do it. All right, what for a young lad doing his show? Yeah, he'll do it. Yeah, just tell him to be there, right?" So Elsie turned around to Sir Bobby Robson. I didn't know this. We all just thought he'd agreed to do it. Elsie turned around to him and went, "Now this little lad's come all the way here to speak to you for his show reel, and he'll just do it, right?" So she just put her husband in his place, and he like, comes over, right? And I was like, "Oh God, this isn't what I expected," because I thought he'd agreed to do it. Anyway, he spoke to me for like 20-25 minutes, took time out of his, Premier League manager of the stature that he's got. And he was there to do like a charity event in the actual library. We were in like a side room. 20 minutes he took out. He answered every question. I was asking him, best player you've ever signed, most difficult player and you've ever had to manage and stuff like that. Asking him all about Paul Gascoigne, Ronaldo, because he signed Ronaldo for Barcelona. He signed the original Ronaldo for Barcelona.
R9, that's my guy, man.
Oh, that was when I asked about best signing, the biggest signing. That was the one, and it was probably some of the best 20 minutes of my life talking to him. Brilliant. All right. So when it comes to kind of meeting people like that, it was just something I'll never ever forget. Never ever forget that. And you get that with a few people. I mean, I remember on a different note, and this is great. Another manager who was Newcastle at the time. Newcastle manager at the time was Graham Souness, who actually replaced Sir Bobby Robson. Graham Souness was working on Sky's Champions League coverage, and I was there making the teas and coffees. And as I went to give him his coffee as the Newcastle manager, the presenter was Richard Keys, and Richard Keys said to Graham Souness, "Hey, careful, Suey, he's a Mackem," right? Pointing at me, Mackem, Sunderland fan. That's
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Graham Souness just looks up because he was sitting down outside. Looks up and goes, "You've no piss in it, have you?"
which you obviously didn't do, Tom. But just to clarify, yeah.
Which I obviously had not done, but that kind of thing was up. So see, that's when people say, "Oh yeah, it must have been so hard being a runner on those long hours, bad pay." I was meeting people like that.
Yeah,
You know, I was meeting Gianluca Vialli, looking after Gianluca Vialli, Ruud Gullit. I wasn't so keen on Ruud Gullit, actually. I've got to be honest.
yeah.
Of all the people, everyone was great. I wasn't so keen on Ruud Gullit. But then if you go back to like the 19, I was looking after David Platt, looking after Glenn Hoddle. You know, it was, and I look back on that time and think, what an absolute pleasure that was. How many people in my situation were doing that, and it was amazing. So, but yeah, in terms of starstruck or anything like that, I mean, Sir Bobby is up there, as in top.
Yeah, Tom, fantastic answer. I think for me, before we move on to the next one, it's obviously doing the YouTube thing for the last couple of years. You know, meeting obviously big Kevin Campbell, man. It's mad. Like I remember Kevin playing. Kevin was part of the last Arsenal team to win an European trophy. That's a long time ago. He's a part of the Arsenal team, the last win a League Cup, and been on a couple of podcasts with him, and obviously Sophie as well. And the first time I met him last season. We beat Watford in the Premier League at home. And they said, "Oh, Kevin Campbell's going to be around sort of the pub around the area, like I think it's 12 Pins in North London." So I got to meet him. It was a really because I've spoken to him before, but only virtually. So to meet him in the flesh was incredible. And Tom, he made me feel like I've known the guy for over 20 years. He smells great. First,
yeah, he does. He dresses great.
Yeah, his dress is fantastic. Kevin's sharp dresser, man. So
yeah,
I seen him like last season. He bumps into me, he talks to me like he's known me forever. I just think this is mad. Big hug, and it blows my mind, Tom, to think like someone that played for my club, and I'm talking to him like he's my best mate. It's crazy to me. Yeah,
he is a great man, and honestly, if you get a chance, search for his that Under the Cosh podcast I was telling you about. Search for his. Right? Yeah. I think it was back in 2019, so you've got to go back a few. But oh my word, don't do it while you're driving because you're likely to crash your car because you're laughing so much. It is brilliant, especially his time out in Turkey.
Yeah, Tom, I've had him on there for life stories. It was brilliant. I'll send it to you, Tom. You can watch.
Send me that. Yeah. He's great. I love him. He's one of my favorite guests.
Oh, love Kevin. I'll definitely click this and put this up. Kevin to be smiling like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah.
But Tom, you've been fantastic so far. So again, another bit of a gear change in terms of life stories. It'd be great to see what you say with this one, actually. Sporting greats. Name one current and one present non-footballing sports person that you admire the most. # talent personified.
Current and one non-footballing. Okay. Well, my first sporting hero was actually a cricketer. I don't know if you're into cricket, but it was.
I am, Tom. I am.
Good. All right. Well, you'll appreciate this. Devin Malcolm. Can you remember Devin Malcolm?
Wow. Yeah. Big Dev, man, for England.
Devin Malcolm was the most underrated sports person in my lifetime.
Wow.
I got into cricket, early, and Devin Malcolm was so fast as a bowler. It was like, I remember thinking, any batter would be so scared. Why on earth don't England pick him in every game? And because England weren't always picking him, like, it just made me love him even more. And it made me angry that he wasn't getting picked because he could blow teams away. He was very wayward, all right? And
he
was very wayward, but he was so fast. Every single opposition batter would be terrified of him coming in. So he was my first sporting hero. So Devin Malcolm for the non-footballing. As for footballing, well, am I allowed?
Tom, you're allowed non-footballing or footballing is fine, mate. You go.
My footballing would be current. Sorry, current. In the past, I was going to say Brian Clough because I'm obsessed with Brian Clough.
Yeah,
current, right? We're current. Everyone laughs at me for this. Sam Allardyce. Honestly, I think that Sam Allardyce is the best manager to manage in the Premier League to have never won it, right? And I think he's better than some of them that have won it. Sam Allardyce could take any job and succeed. I think I know he went down with West Brom.
Yeah,
All right, I know.
yeah.
I
I
do
know what you mean.
think there was. I'm sure there are excuses. He would never make any excuses, but I think there probably are a few excuses for that. But footballing wise, definitely Sam Allardyce, and non-footballing, Devon Malcolm.
Thanks, Ryan Willis, for the comment. Thank you. Listen, nothing's given for free, mate. So I'll bear that in mind, 100%. Much love, brother. But no, great answers, Tom. For me, I'm going to reel off a few. So I love my athletics, but I think of Serena Williams, 23 Grand Slam titles. Andre Agassi.
Linford early for me, but Barcelona '92, Linford
Yeah,
Christie.
Linford. Yeah, 100.
Linford Christie for me, because he's probably him and Sally Gunnell in those Olympics.
Yes,
in those Olympics, and was Colin Jackson 2 years later, or was he? I think Colin Jackson might have been.
Colin was around. He never won an Olympic title, did he? He won everything else apart from Olympics.
Right. Okay. And I remember because in the 4x100 meters was John Regis not alongside Linford Christie as well in that one as well.
Regis would have been there, yeah.
He was thicker set.
Yeah, with big lad, man.
And then, of course, and like Chris Akabusi for his personality rather than his talent as well. So going back to then, like athletics-wise, like Gunnell and Christie stand out to me.
Yeah, and then like people like Andre Agassi. And one person I mustn't forget, he kind of came up to I thought thinking about him yesterday. Don't know if you're a rugby fan, Tom, rugby union or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, John Olomu.
Yeah.
Wow. 95 World Cup. I think either last or the year before, that's like one of the best moments when he trampled all over him. I think it was Mike Catt for that try and again in the semi-final of the World Cup. He defied Tom in terms of your typical winger who was quick but kind of slender. But John Olomu was a big lad, but he could shift.
Oh, amazing. He was lightning. I'm glad you brought him up actually, because he certainly deserves recognition. I remember a good joke from a comedian at the end of the World Cup that New Zealand won, where John Olomu, I think they won, but anyway, John Olomu starred in that World Cup and they'd beaten England.
Yeah,
and he said, "Yeah, the Rugby World Cup was great. There were so many great tries, like from him, and him." And Tony Underwood really tried to tackle John Olomu. With some great tries.
Yeah, everyone tried. Martin Johnson, Rob Andrew, they all tried, mate. No joy at all, man. But Tom was fantastic. But Tom, we have one more question on life stories, and best till last, probably arguably. But all the questions you've answered your answers have been amazing. But advice, aspirations. What advice would you give to anyone that wants to pursue a career in the football sports industry? #sound advice.
Yeah, well, I think this is as in recent years, has changed slightly. So everything I said about the hard work and getting a chance and being patient as well. All right, sacrifices, all of that all still applies to this. But if let's say you specifically want to get to Sky Sports News, you need your NCTJ, which is the journalism degree. It's a 1-year course. I think you might even be able to do it at home. I don't know about that. Something you can check. But in terms, things have changed now, right? If I wanted to get any sort of experience as a presenter, it was quite hard when I was younger. Now you can do this. You can have a YouTube channel. You can have a podcast, right? You can, which you've got a ready-made show reel there, because you can send it to people to get work or to appear as a guest on certain things. You can, and I would say now, let's say you are studying now, I would say go to your local sports club. Let's say you've got a local non-league football club, right? So for me, it would be either Bracknell Town or Binfield, right? I live in Berkshire.
Yeah.
I could go to Binfield, for instance, and say, right, have you got anyone who controls your social media? Have you got anyone who interviews the manager post-match and the man of the match or the captain? They might say, no, we don't. Right, I'll do it for free. I'll do it. I'll come down to games. I'll update social media. So on 17 minutes, such and such has a shot from the edge of the area, hits the post, something like that. And post-match, we'll record a 1-minute interview with the manager and the captain, man of the match, and we'll put that out. This will grow. That will just, whether it grows their Twitter feed or not, their Twitter account or not, I don't know, but it will make their Twitter account better. You can offer that for free, right?
Yeah.
Which in my day, there wasn't that. You could
Yeah.
do a write-up in the local newspaper, which you can still do that. I used to do that for free. I used to do cricket match reports in the local newspaper for free. But now you can do much better than that. You can do what you're doing. You can have a podcast, and you can do that with local clubs as well. And all of that looks great on your CV because you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
No
100%.
one's handed it to you. You've done it all yourself. When I got into Sky, people used to say to me, "Oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Look at that over there. Their surname is such and such, current Premier League manager's son or daughter. That one's such and such, current Premier League manager's son or daughter." I didn't know anyone, right? And I've done all of this I did all of this with no help. And I think people appreciate that I started at the bottom, worked up with no help. All right. It was all me. What you're doing here, you've done this all yourself, right? And you should be very proud of that. And that looks good to whether it's a potential employer that you want, or whether you want to, let's say on our transfer shows, if you wanted to be a contributor on Sky Sports News, the fact that you've started this yourself,
and
you've done it all yourself is a massive positive for you and everybody doing the same thing as you.
Yeah.
Huge, hats off to all of you, because there's a heck of a lot of hard work that goes into it. But people see that, people recognize the hard work, and eventually, my belief is that you'll be rewarded for it.
No, Tom, thank you for your kind words. We're going to wrap up in a minute, but Tom, just to you, I followed you on Sky Sports for a very, very long time. And I always say to people, and there's a lot of the YouTube content creators in the chat as well, and they'll probably watch it back, the guys I collab with, smaller YouTube channels or the big YouTube channels, same old Arsenal, Lee Judges TV, Highbury Squad, loads of Tom Goon Talk TV, Chronicles of Laguna. I've been lucky enough to have been asked to come on bigger channels. And I always say people's time is everything, because yes, you can do the content, but if people feel engaged and captivated by the person speaking, and I think you do that fantastically well, Tom. Sometimes it's not just about asking the questions, it's the way you ask it and it's the way you deliver it. And I think you're first class at doing that. And that's something I look at and think, you know what? I always watch back your content, what you can improve, what you like, what you didn't like, analyze it, because that's how you strive and get better. And just thank you for your time, man. It's been an education for me to get you on. And you're amazing, Tom, mate. So keep up the fantastic work that you're doing. And I'll be sure
very,
to
very kind. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you very much. And I think it's just so, I think it's such a good thing that, my bosses at Sky are incorporating people like yourself, like YouTube channels, podcasts, incorporate it into our main output. It's so important to me because we need to get the fans' perspective on things.
Well said.
Phonos don't work on television. All right.
Yeah.
Phone-ins, as in fan phone-ins, doesn't work. Right? And I hate it and I defend it so much when people say, "Oh, who are these people? Why don't they have an ex-player? Why don't they have a manager on to talk about this?" Well, we fill 24 hours a day on Sky Sports News. We have loads of players. We have loads of players, current and ex. We have loads of managers, current and ex. Right. That person who's probably saying, "What do we care about what they think?" That person is a fan. So you're saying to me that fans' opinions don't count. Why are you giving your opinion then?
Exactly.
And it annoys me. It probably annoys me more than anything else.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah,
it annoys me, and I defend people so much, saying, right, well, if their opinion doesn't count, your opinion doesn't count. Does your opinion count? Of course it does. Thank you very much. And it annoys me.
Tom, fantastic.
You can see how much it annoys me. You can see how much it annoys me.
No, but Tom, like I said, man, thank you for your time, man. I put the call out and you answered, and I was buzzing to get you on. I'm pretty good at keeping secrets because I didn't want to sort of put it out there until you confirm. But big ups to some of the people in the chat. Borgie's in there, G Talks, Cannon Chatter, Arsenal Analyzed, RJ Wills, loads of people in there. If I've missed anybody out, I'm thinking of you deep down in the back of my head. But Tom, thank you for giving me your time, man, and for coming on. And hopefully I'll have some more conversations with you in the future, mate. About Arsenal as well. Yeah. But people, like I say, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're not following Tom White already, then what on earth are you waiting for? Go and do it, people. So yeah, that is Life Stories over and out. My fantastic guest, Tom White, Albert JTV, your host. Instagram and Twitter at the bottom of the screen. This will go out on the audios. This is Albert JTV over and out. See you soon, people.